The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the individuals and do not express the views or opinions of Africa Check or affiliated groups. Welcome to Behind the Facts, a podcast that focuses on shining a light on the individuals that work behind the scenes, curbing the spread of false and misleading information, and fostering a culture of accuracy. I am your host, Thipe Maelane. Fact-checking organizations must be flexible and adaptable to tackle false and misleading information in a constantly changing landscape. In doing so, they become centers of innovation on social media and digital platforms. For today's discussion, I'd like to have our guests tell you who they are and what they do.
Hello, Thipe. My name is Saja Mortada, and I am a Lebanese journalist and fact-checker, and the manager of the Arab Fact Checkers Network, AFCN, from Arij, which is Arab Reporters for Investigative Journalism. AFCN was established in 2020, and it's the fact-checking network in the Arab world to support more than 30 fact-checking organizations and 300 plus fact-checkers from 16 Arab countries with capacity building, innovation, networking, and safety.
Welcome, Saja, and thank you for joining us for today's discussion around fact-checking digital and social media platforms. Digital platforms have user numbers. However, this is not always a sign of engagement or true reach. This leads me into my first question, which is a two-part question. Firstly, what is your approach to fact-checking on digital or social media platforms? And secondly, what have you observed while fact-checking on these platforms?
Okay, fact-checking on digital and social media platforms requires a strategic approach because, as you know, misinformation and disinformation spread very quickly and in various formats. So you have text, images, videos, data, documents, and even nowadays with AI deepfakes. Arij's AFCN approach in the Arab world follows a structured process. First, we identify viral claims. We monitor trending topics, user reports, flagged content from social media using AI fact-checking tools that can help us, like full fact AI tools in Arabic language. This could include, of course, anything from political claims to health misinformation. And in addition to that, we receive monthly hundreds of claims by the audience through our WhatsApp and Messenger chatbot supported by AI in Arabic language. Secondly, we verify the claim, depending, of course, on the nature of this claim, and we use different methods, reverse image, video searchers, and tools to debunk manipulated media. We consult credible sources such as official reports or expert analysis. We check, of course, for any contextual inconsistencies in the claims, and we do advanced search, and also we communicate with other fact checkers. Third, we communicate the fact checks. Once verified, the results need to be, of course, shared effectively. So we communicate through reports, social media posts, directly with the audience through the chatbot, or collaborations with media outlets. The ultimate goal is to reach audiences before misinformation becomes deeply embedded. Fourth, we support the whole community of fact-checking in the Arab world, as I mentioned before, by capacity building, networking, innovation, and safety. And that is to strengthen the media ecosystem and content in Arabic language. And finally, we focus on integrating pre-publication fact-checking within media organizations to avoid publishing any misinformation or mistakes, even with no intention to cause harm. About the second part of the questions, of course, we have several observations based on our experience. First of all, misinformation is highly emotional. False claims that are spread on social media often provoke anger, fear, excitement, which drives, of course, to more engagement and make people take direct decisions and engagement more than factual content, actually. The second observation is that private messaging platforms are a challenge, a major challenge. WhatsApp, Telegram allow misinformation to spread quickly and unchecked, unlike, of course, public posts. These are harder to track and debunk, and our fact-checking chatbot is actually helping in this. The third observation is related to that Unfortunately, some people don't always trust fact checkers. If a fact check contradicts their beliefs, they may dismiss it as biased or part of a propaganda or agenda, like, of course, a lot of politicians do. And fact checking is an ongoing battle. It requires adaptation all the time to new trends, new techniques, new approaches. And finally, the observation related to AI, which is currently an issue, and it's making our lives as fact checkers harder in fighting misinformation and disinformation.
Thank you, Saja. I think you've mentioned quite a lot of things, including a structural process which puts rigor to approach towards fact-checking social and digital media platforms. But interestingly, you said that people don't always believe fact-checkers, right? And that leads me into my next question. When we're looking at algorithmic amplification, is misinformation still being spread and boosted on platforms despite fact-checking efforts? But before we get into that, can you provide a brief explainer of what you understand algorithmic amplification to be?
First of all, of course, misinformation is still being amplified, often at an alarming rate, despite all our fact-checking efforts. The core issue of amplification, algorithmic amplification, is it lies in how social media platforms actually prioritize engagement over accuracy. So algorithms are designed, as you know, to show users content they are likely to interact with. And unfortunately, false or sensational claims often generate more engagement than fact-based content, as we see during wars or during specific events or during elections. How does that actually happen? Misinformation triggers strong reaction, whether it's fear, curiosity, outrage. All posts that spark emotions get more comments and shares, making them more likely to be promoted by algorithms. In addition to that, influencers and high-profile figures amplify actually misinformation. For example, if a public figure shares a misleading claim, even if it gets fact-checked later, but the original post might have already reached millions of people around the world. And finally, fact checks don't always have the same reach. Even when a post is labeled as false, for example, on social media, the correction of it and the fact-checking piece might not be seen by the same number of people who actually saw the original misinformation. And as if I want to give you some examples of that, COVID-19 misinformation, for example, when it comes to false cures, conspiracy theories, these posts spread faster than accurate health information, even if they are flagged. If we want to discuss election, for example, misleading claims about voter fraud often go viral before any platforms and any social media companies actually react. And we have, of course, the deepfakes and AI-generated misinformation. We can see a lot of them all over social media, and sometimes it's hard to detect them. And algorithms may still amplify them if they generate, of course, high engagement, and they usually do. So while fact-checking helps, of course, in reducing misinformation spread, but the incentive structure of social media platforms still actually favors viral content if it was true or it was false.
You're listening to Behind the Facts.
This is Behind the Facts.
This is Behind the Facts.
This is Behind the
This is
Facts.
Behind the Facts.
You're listening to Behind the Facts.
Thanks for tuning in into Behind the Facts.
So given the sheer volume, because from what you've just painted, it sounds like you mentioned, one post can reach 1 million people. It's a different type of environment. Can fact checkers keep up with the sheer volume of misinformation on these platforms?
As fact checkers, we always try our best. We always try to find ways to detect as much as we can false claims and highlight the fact checks. We do that through a lot of tools that can help us. For example, for AFCN, the chatbot is a great way because people can send us at any time from everywhere around the world anything they are doubting it's correct or not. We always monitor social media all the time through several tools to see, based on keywords, based on context, what's happening and what people actually can be talking about. But at the same time, it's a huge battle that needs collaboration between different stakeholders, that need partnerships and need collaboration between sometimes different regions when something is related to different countries, of course, or different regions. So it's not easy, but at the same time, we are doing our best to keep up this battle.
It's very true. Collaboration is a very key part of achieving the ultimate objective. And to help curb the spread of misinformation and disinformation online, we've seen organizations partner with digital and social media platforms. Would you say these fact-checking partnerships are meaningfully reducing misinformation, or do they simply limit its worst effects?
Of course, fact-checking partnerships with social media companies like Meta and Google and TikTok are helping. But I believe they are more of a damage control measure than a complete solution of the misinformation problem. For example, these partnerships allow third-party fact-checker to review and flag misleading content, reducing its reach. And also, these partnerships provide funding opportunities to support these organizations and fact-checking efforts, capacity building, media literacy efforts, and fact-checked content. However, of course, these partnerships come with significant limitations. One of them is that, as you know, and as we said before, misinformation spreads faster than fact checks. So false claims go viral in hours, while verification might take time to be done and to be published and to be communicated with people. Secondly, not all misinformation gets flagged. So algorithms don't always catch new types of false claims, and fact checkers have limited reach. So sometimes you find fact-checking organizations that have that do great work, but they don't have a lot of followers, and their content is not being communicated a lot. And unfortunately, misinformation is still profitable. So some media organizations, some influencers, some platforms rely on engagement-driven advertising, which means they have little incentive to reduce viral content, even if it's false. They want more readers, they want more engagement, so they might publish information that is not accurate just to get more engagement. So while fact-checking partnerships with social media companies are valuable and important, of course, because we need these joint efforts, we need to communicate with stakeholders that are part of this problem, but they only contain the spread of misinformation rather than effectively stopping it.
No, I completely understand where you're coming from. And the interesting thing that you mentioned there is that there's things tied into it, like having to be profitable. We know that there are things that have been introduced by news media, things like paywalls, and audiences are not happy. Some audiences are not happy with that sort of thing, having to pay for something that was previously free. And that's just the state of the media that we find ourselves in globally. But with there being two sides to every coin, what would you say are some of the positives we've seen in terms of fact-checking online or social media platforms?
Despite all the challenges we mentioned, of course, fact-checking in the digital space has led to several important benefits and impact. First of all, and the most important thing, is the greater public awareness about misinformation. Now, more people are questioning viral claims and looking for verified sources. And fact-checking organizations and networks like AFCN, Africa Check, Maldita, Full Fact has become trusted resources. So I still remember when October 7, 2023 happened, AFCN was the main resource to a lot of organizations from all over the world in fact-checking content related to Gaza. Secondly, holding powerful figures accountable. Now, we are all on social media. We can see everything. So politicians, media outlets, influencers, they can actually face public scrutiny if they spread falsehood. We have people that can actually talk about that, mention that, make people see that, and fact checkers play a huge role in this. One of the positive sides also is the technological advancement in fact checking. We have now more AI-powered tools, and they are improving the speed and accuracy of fact checking. So before, we didn't have all these monitoring ways using AI that will make our life easier as fact checker, but now we have this option. And some tools like deepfake detection tools and reverse images, etc., are becoming more accessible, so all people can actually use them. And one of the positive things is that today's we have more partnerships and collaboration when it comes to fact checking. So university, journalists, media organizations, tech companies, we find that they work together to improve fact checking techniques. And cross-border collaborations always help fight global misinformation campaigns. During the Gaza war, AFCN supported more than 80 plus fact-checking organizations worldwide in fact-checking, and they published actually fact-checking reports in more than 10 languages. And also we had a successful collaboration with Africa Check during the Tunisian-Algerian fact-checking. We did a coalition and it helped a lot. So while misinformation is, of course, a major challenge, fact-checking has made significant impact and improved actually the media and digital literacy ecosystem. And of course, despite all these challenges, we need to continue fighting to make more impact against misinformation. I am Saja Mortada, AFCN manager from Arish, and you are listening to Behind the Facts.
Thank you, Saja. And it's very true what you've mentioned there in terms of us having to be more innovative and think of creative ways in order to address the spread of false and misleading information, because the platforms will always be different, but information will always be shared on these platforms. And so it becomes important for us to have organizations and networks such as yours and others that play a key role in ensuring that you safeguard the integrity of information. Considering current developments in the digital partnership space and looking to the future, what happens if platforms scale back fact-checking partnerships? Is there a way for us to pivot, if at all?
If social media companies reduce their fact-checking partnerships with fact-checkers, and this actually happened with Meta lately because they decided to stop their third-party fact-checking program, of course misinformation will increase as fewer resources will be available to counter misinformation. But I think, yes, there is some ways to pivot and continue fighting misinformation, and we are actually doing that. There are consequences, of course. This might lead to less visibility for fact checks, greater spread of harmful misinformation. Fact checkers will lose access to important tools in their work, and of course will lose also funding, which is already an issue in some regions like in the MENA region. What we need to do is, of course, to diversify funding and reach out to different and new organizations that might support our fact-checking work. And the most important thing, that they believe in its importance. Secondly, it's important to develop independent fact-checking ecosystems. So NGOs, independent organizations may need to step up funding and resources for fact-checking efforts. We need to invest more in media literacy, because if platforms don't intervene, educating users to think critically about what they consume in media will be crucial. I believe each organization, fact-checking organization, needs to work on its business model and try to find new and different ways to maintain its sustainability. And finally, we need to engage more with the audience about fact-checking. And that can happen through our websites, not just through social media. Might happen in person also, because it's important now to communicate in person. I still remember during the war in Lebanon in 2024, fact-checkers went to the schools where refugees are and started speaking about fact-checking and telling them how they can fact-check and discussing about misinformation related to war. So we need to engage in person with our audience. So while losing, of course, social media platform support would be a setback, but fact checkers must prepare themselves for alternative and innovative ways to combat misinformation. And I think we have the chance to do that now.
Thank you, Saja. I think from what you're saying is that it is a mountain, but not one that we can't conquer. And it's very reassuring to see all of the efforts that are being made to ensure that individuals and the decisions that are made in the public domain are based on the best available evidence. I'd like to thank you for joining us for today's episode. It was very insightful, and the focus on social media and digital platforms has been one that has been in the public domain quite recently, and it's good to hear other voices contributing to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
Join us in the next episode where we look into innovative approaches to fact-checking in the offline environment. We encourage you to send through your ideas and suggestions for the show via WhatsApp on +27 73 74 97 875. You can also email us on info@africacheck.org. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. I have been your host, Thipe Maelane, and this is Behind the Facts.